tank used. The M13/40 tank was a medium tank used by the Kingdom of Italy in the early stages of World War II, with M standing for Medio, which means medium tank in Italian, 13 referring to the expected vehicle weight of 13 tons, and 40 indicating the year of first production, 1940, designed to replace the L3, L640, and M11/39 tanks in the early army of the Royal Italian Army. The vehicle was heavily influenced by the British Vickers 6-ton tank and was designed based on an improved chassis of the earlier M11/39 tank. In fact, the production of the M11/39 tank was shortened to facilitate the mass production of the M13/40 tank. Although designed under the concept of a medium tank, the M13/40's standards for armor and firepower were closer to those of a light tank. The M13/40 tank was also the most widely used tank by the Italian military. The development of the M13 tank began around 1937, with the prototype introduced in 1938. Although it was an improvement of the M11/39, it had superior firepower configuration, including a coaxial machine gun, a body-mounted machine gun, and even a roof-mounted gun, providing the tank with basic anti-infantry and anti-aircraft capabilities. In December 1939, Italy decided to close the M11/39 production line early to focus on mass-producing the M13/40, a move that, in hindsight, proved to be wise. The armor was constructed from riveted steel plates, with thicknesses of, front of the hull, 30 mm, same as the M11, front of the turret, 42 mm, M11 had 30 mm, sides, 25 mm, M11 had only 15 mm, bottom, only 6 mm, which made it very susceptible to landmine damage, and top, 15 mm. The crew was located in the forward fighting compartment, with the engine at the rear and the transmission at the front. The fighting compartment could accommodate 4 crew members, driver, gunner and radio operator in the hull, while the gunner and commander were in the turret. The vehicle uses a transmission system derived from the Vickers, featuring 2 bogies and 8 small road wheels on each side, supported by a leaf spring suspension system. The tracks are connected by a traditional steel plate framework and are relatively narrow. This design led the guerrillas to believe that it would have good maneuverability in mountainous combat, but later, when the M13/40 was deployed in the desert, it was found to have very poor mobility. The tank is powered by a 125 horsepower diesel engine, an innovative approach at the time as many countries had not yet adopted diesel engines for tanks, and it set a trend for the future, consuming less fuel than gasoline engines, having a longer range, and lower risk of fire. The main weapon of this tank is a 47 mm main gun, capable of penetrating 45 mm armor plates at a distance of 500 meters, effectively combating the British Army's light and cruiser tanks, but still unable to deal with heavier infantry tanks. It carries a total of 104 rounds of armor-piercing and high-explosive shells. The M13 is also equipped with 3 to 4 machine guns, 1 coaxial machine gun with the main gun and 2 forward-facing machine guns mounted on a spherical turret. The 4th machine gun is flexibly mounted on top of the turret as an anti-aircraft machine gun. Additionally, there are 2 periscopes for the commander and gunner, and a radio as standard equipment. The M13/40 tank was used in the 1940 invasion of Greece, the invasion of Yugoslavia, and the North African Front in 1941. The M13/40 was not used on the Eastern Front. The Italian forces were only equipped with the Fiat L640 and the 4732 self-propelled gun there. In early 1942, the Italian forces realized the insufficient firepower of the M13/40 series and quickly allocated the 7518 self-propelled gun to their armored units. Before the autumn of 1940, the first batch of 700 M13/40 tanks had been delivered to the troops, with continuous production at a rate of 60 to 70 tanks per month. The M13 was also used on the Greek battlefield, fighting in the harsh local terrain. When the Greco-Italian War broke out, the 2nd Tank Company of the 4th Tank Battalion of the 131st Semi-Armored Division was the only unit equipped with M13/40 tanks on the local front. This tank company mainly supported infantry attacks in the areas of Tapolina and Kerkura. In January 1941, 4 of their tanks were damaged during the defense against the Greek army's counterattack, and an additional 2 tanks were lost during combat operations on March 19. In North Africa, at least 57 M13/40 tanks were sent to fight against British forces, but due to their late arrival, they missed the offensive launched by the Axis powers in September. They were then used in the Operation Compass in December, primarily commanded by Italian General Valentino Babbini, leading a special armored brigade. Others were deployed to the newly arrived V Battalion forces at Darna, as well as the tanks of the 3rd Battalion that arrived near Bardia. After 2 days of fighting, January 3 to 4, 1941, the Australian forces suffered 456 casualties, while the Axis forces had 45,000 troops captured. However, this unit's main combat achievement was not in offensive operations, but on January 24 and 25, 1942, when they successfully resisted British forces in Mechalai, even though the Axis forces had already suffered significant defeats. They claimed to have repelled British assaults and destroyed 25 Allied vehicles, while the Allies acknowledged losing only 8 tanks. Although the offensive was delayed, the British 7th Armoured Division successfully flanked the defensive line, forcing the insurgents to continue their retreat to the northwest towards Green Mountain Province, hoping to gain support from the port near Sidra Bay and abandoning the idea of retreating from the port of Derna. On February 6 to 7, the British launched an offensive that breached the insurgents' defense line and tore a large gap, advancing the British line at Beta Fahm while successfully cutting off the route for the insurgents to retreat to the Libyan coast. In the end, the insurgent units equipped with M13/40 tanks lost all their tanks in the area due to a failed retreat. The last remaining 6 tanks charged into the local British Army headquarters, but they were consecutively destroyed by a QF 2-pounder gun. A large number of captured M11/39 and M13/40 tanks were reused by the British and Australian forces, equipping the Australian 6th Division Cavalry Regiment and the 6th Battalion, Royal Tank Regiment until they were destroyed in the spring of 1941 when their fuel ran out. Then in April 1941, the M13/40 tanks used by the Ariete Division, which participated in the siege of Tobruk, were at a disadvantage against the British Matilda II. In April 1941, with the arrival of the German Afrika Korps, the Italian army had about 240 M13 and M14 tanks in frontline service. By 1942, as the Allies began using M3 Grant tanks, Crusader Mk3 tanks, and infantry units equipped with 6-pounder anti-tank towed guns, the weaknesses of the M13 began to become apparent. Subsequently, the Italian army equipped each tank battalion with at least one company of heavier 75-18 self-propelled guns. To enhance their protection, the Italians added many sandbags and spare tracks to the hulls, but this made the already underpowered vehicles even slower and increased maintenance difficulties. During the Second Battle of El Alamein, the volunteers first encountered the American-made M4 Sherman while also retaining 230 minutes and 13 seconds fighting on the front lines. After several days of battle, the Ram Brigade and the Vittorio Veneto Brigade were used for the retreat of the Axis forces, while the Centaur Brigade, also equipped with them. Although the M13/40 tank was classified as a light tank at the beginning of World War II, it was similar to other variants derived from the Vickers 6-ton tank, such as the Polish 7TP or the Soviet T-26 tank. However, its weight of 13 tons, combined with the thickness of its armor and its firepower, was sufficient to deal with British tanks in 1940-41. The main gun used high-explosive shells that could effectively counter towed artillery and infantry. The diesel engine it employed was not only advantageous but also an easier option for Italy, which had an underdeveloped industrial sector. .13 tanks, fought in Tunisia and was nearly annihilated. However, the tank also has some drawbacks. The diesel engine provides a longer range for the vehicle but has reliability issues. Worse still, Italy did not design a reliable filtration system for their diesel engines, and they operated in dirtier desert environments, exacerbating the reliability problems. The engine of the M13 is the same as that of the M11, but the former is heavier, which results in a slower speed and excessive fatigue. The suspension system and tracks, while sufficiently reliable, also affect speed, leading to a disadvantage against infantry tanks like the Matilda. The armament was still adequate during 1940-41, but did not keep up with the weapon developments of the German and Allied forces, leading to delays in armor and firepower. The riveted manufacturing method of the vehicle is also outdated, as most advanced countries have switched to electric welding to prevent rivets from flying around inside the vehicle after being hit by enemy shells, which could injure the crew. The 2-man turret has also been shown to have worse combat efficiency compared to the 3-man turret. Additionally, most of the tanks were not equipped with radio devices.